Good afternoon and welcome from me. This is, I think, Seminar 4 in our series of Get Ready for Alma webinars. And as my colleague said, today is part 2 of how Alma helps me to be a librarian again. Now, in the last presentation, in part 1 of the How Alma Helps Me to Be a Librarian Again, I took, I guess, a personal look at what being a librarian meant to me, and then tried to relate that to the library automation world and ultimately, of course, to Alma. I think I managed to make that link well enough, but for those of you who didn't attend part 1 of this seminar, or for those of you who did but have forgotten what I said, we'll have a quick reminder, really just to set the scene. So, what is librarianship for me from a practical point of view? What do we mean about becoming a librarian again? Well, I was actually a librarian in high school and proudly wore a badge exactly like this one. I then worked in public libraries in London for about 5 years, and on the screen now is the very building I worked in. It was a very old building, and sadly, actually, it was knocked down in the late 1980s. Now, hopefully, nobody listening today, hopefully none of us, still use the tools that I had to use in the public libraries. We've got here a card catalogue. I've used many of those. Specifically in my case, in the public library authority that I worked for, we had library catalogues on microfilm. And of course, I worked very regularly with the lovely brown issue. One of the big challenges of the brown issue was you could easily knock the whole of the issue system all over the floor. And although the tools that we use, the technology, have quite definitely changed since I started working in libraries all those years ago, what did occur to me was that the challenges we struggled with back then, so I'm talking about sort of, when I first started, really in the early 1980s, the challenges that we struggled with through that period are broadly the same as the challenges that library and information workers face now. And that is a challenge to automate manual tasks so that we can be more efficient, so that we are not spending our valuable time doing these manual tasks, and that we can focus on what we really want to do as librarians. So, maybe focus more time on our end users or be doing something innovative with our time. So I thought about library automation and where we had gotten to now, but what was still missing. And in fact, I discovered in sort of, thinking about and researching the idea of library automation was that libraries and librarians have been striving to automate since 1900. In 1900, designed, patented, was a machine to automatically date stamp books, apparently. And this was clearly an attempt to make repetitive, time-consuming tasks more efficient. Now, I'm going to obviously be demoing parts of Alma to you in a moment or two. And as I demonstrate these features that I think create efficiencies, I'd like you to be thinking about a couple of things. In your current situation, is your role still hugely labor-intensive? 115 years on from that first attempt at automating these time-consuming tasks, are many of the tasks you have to do still requiring some kind of manual intervention? Now, let's leap now to 2015. And the next generation library systems or library platforms. of which obviously Alma is one, and indeed I think it's fair to say is very much the market leader. These next generation systems or platforms are very much all about creating efficiencies. And in the case of Alma tackles this idea of creating efficiencies by enabling workflows, by the centralized provision of shared data, such as authorities and the provision of a central knowledge base, and by integrating with third-party products and systems to speed up and improve those automated workflows. Now, let's actually have a look at Alma. Go on to the demo to allow me to kind of, prove my case, as it were. In the last example, in the last seminar we did on this, how to be a librarian again, in part 1, we looked at the Alma dashboard, we looked at cataloging, we looked at circulation. Today, we're going to look at the areas of acquisitions and analytics. Basically, I think there's so much to show you, we couldn't put it in just one webinar. So I'll move away from the slides and we'll actually go to Alma and do a live demo. Okay. Just move over to Alma. And I'm logging in initially as Annie, who's a manager within our acquisitions team in my Alma University. For those of you where this might actually be the first time that you've seen an Alma demo, I'll just sort of describe what it is you're seeing on screen, and then we'll move into the actual acquisitions demo. Now, this whole area here we call the dashboard, and each one of these boxes we call a widget, and they are end results of reports that have been created within Alma, within the analytics area. And depending on the area that you work in within your library, as I've said, Annie works in our acquisitions team, the widgets that you can have access to, the reports you have access to, will be specific to the area that you work in. And you can customize this dashboard area by choosing widgets that give you a bit of an overview about what's going on in your area of work. So Annie being within acquisitions, she's getting an update of what's going on within the acquisitions area. She's looking at vendor information, budgets, and so forth. But what I'd actually like to draw your attention to is this box here, this task list. Workflows are one of the ways that Alma creates efficiencies. I mentioned that in the earlier slide. Workflows, quite simply, allow processes to be automated and to only need staff intervention where there is an exception to a locally defined rule. And I'll explain that in more detail in a moment. Actually, in fact, if we think about it, this task list is in itself an efficient way to work. When you log into Alma in the morning, you can see from this task list straight away what needs your attention. You're not sitting and thinking, oh, what was I working on yesterday? Or now I wonder if those deliveries or the claims have been processed, or I wonder if it's time to look at renewals, because the workflows that have been set up automatically remind you or alert you when there is work that needs to be done. So, for example, here, where my cursor is, you can see that there are quite a number of items that are waiting for renewal. And so if that's what Annie needs to work on today, she can simply click here and examine and deal with those renewals. But this morning, Annie actually notices in her task list that there is an order line item that has been assigned to her that wasn't there yesterday. So she can take a look and see why it has been brought to her attention, because the idea is that all these processes, these workflows, should be running automatically in the background and only need intervention by a member of staff if there is something, well, I suppose you could say wrong, if there's something that is an exception to a rule that you have set up. So this one has been specifically assigned to her. She wants to see what's going on, so she can click on that line in her task list. And she can see here, actually, just from the short information, at the bottom here, there's messages. It's saying that there's a couple of things that have meant that this particular item has been flagged for her attention. Apparently, there is mandatory information missing. And also, it tells us that the items already exist in the repository. So what it's saying is that this item that's been ordered, this book title, did you know you already had a copy? Now, the first message, mandatory information is missing. That's actually automatically generated from Alma. There is information that Alma needs to continue with this workflow that's actually not there, so somebody's going to have to enter it. The warning message that actually you've already got a copy of this is one that Annie's library will have specifically said, yes, this is important to us. So if this happens, stop the process and flag it for somebody's attention. So that's, if you like, an optional one. We can go and have a look at this record in more detail to see exactly what information is missing. And in fact, look, you can see straight away, it's in red right at the top of the screen, which information is missing, and indeed the fields where it should go are highlighted as well. And straight away we can see, yes, it was obvious why this particular order item couldn't progress on its way through the workflow, because actually no supplier has been added, there isn't a price for this item, and therefore a fund had not been selected. So all of those bits of information will need to be added, and then this can carry on. Presumably, with all the rest of the items from this order were fine, and they're just carrying on through the workflow. But I can also see, if you notice these tabs here, where the tab has this little blue box highlighted, that's also saying to me there's some other alerts here, catching my attention. So I'm going to go to that alert tab. And here as well, I can see the other message that was relayed to us, that just flagging up, this ordered resource already exists in the inventory. Do you want to order another copy? And so straight away, just by clicking on this link here, Annie could go and have a look at the copy, and she could make the decision as to whether we are ordering a second copy or whether she actually needs to intervene and cancel this particular order item. But let's look at those assigned items again. So one had been specifically assigned to Annie for her attention. But I said right at the beginning when I logged in, she's got a managerial role within the acquisitions team. So she can see a couple of other tabs up here. She can see items that are not assigned to anybody. And if necessary, she, in her supervisory, her managerial role, can assign this to somebody who can perhaps answer the questions. She can also see all the other outstanding items that are currently sitting with other people, that have been assigned to other people. And this is quite useful, to check that things are moving along quickly. But also, perhaps somebody is on vacation or is off sick for a while. And so if she needs to pick up on particular items and pass them to somebody else, she can do that. So, for example, this item here, there's some items that need attention. It's overdue, the item has not been activated, somebody really needs to check what's going on, but the colleague who's supposed to be working on it, Bettina, is on sick leave, let's say. So what Annie can do is she could actually assign it to somebody else. So she can keep the processes going. Stuff is not sitting around and inaccessible to other people. So what she might do is assign it to somebody who also works in this area, and she can even put a little note saying, please can you look at this while Bettina is away. Spell that a little bit better. And if she simply assigns this to Sylvia, next time Sylvia looks at her task list, she'll see a new entry in it. But if she wanted to draw it to Sylvia's attention really quite urgently, by checking in this box, she could also send it as an email. So that's all really quite efficient. You know, you're moving stuff around the system, you're flagging it for other people's attention. I'll just assign that to Sylvia, so she'll just see that in her task list next time she looks at it. It's not hugely urgent. And I can now see it's still in the assigned to others list, but I can see it's now been assigned to Sylvia. Another thing I'll just draw to your attention, which again is it's kind of about the efficiencies, but it's also really about how you know you're looking at a true next generation system. One of the real drivers behind this move to what people call these next generation library systems or library platforms was an acknowledgement that the existing library systems that people were using, the more traditional older versions, really weren't equipped, still aren't equipped, to deal with the types of resources that libraries have to manage at the moment. And of course I'm talking about electronic resources, because many of the systems that are still out there, still in use, in some cases still being sold, were designed 20, 30 years ago, where nobody would have dreamt that we would be managing electronic resources in the way we need to, at a time when maybe just having journals on a CD-ROM was considered, state of the art. The next generation systems have been designed from the beginning to deal with the traditional resources, obviously still being able to deal with print books, with print serials, but also have the appropriate mechanisms to manage and deal with your e-books, your e-journal packages, and so forth. And what you can see in this list of acquisitions items that need attention is a demonstration of that we have got here. Print material, physical one-time order. You've got electronic titles. You've got electronic books, and within this list somewhere we'll have packages of e-resources, and they are all managed in the same area, in the same way. You're not moving to different parts of the system. You're not having to manage with a bit of paper, a spreadsheet, and your library management system. Everything is where you need to have it, in the same place, managed appropriately. And sort of continuing with this idea of what extra features a next generation system offers you to assist with the efficient ways of working, we'll just go back to the Alma menu and I'll highlight another area, and that is the licenses area, the license management area of Alma. Now, you might also call it ERM functionality in your library, electronic resource management. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open one of the licenses we have here. Now, I'm only going to look at this in very, very brief detail. We did do a webinar about managing your e-resources, so if you weren't able to see that, do by all means contact us, because it's recorded. We can send you that. Because what I want to do is skip over most of these tabs and just go to the license terms. Now, the ability to expose all the relevant terms of use as part of a contract means that any library staff member can access this important information. So there's no more having to find an e-resources person to ask, or struggle through the paper version of the license, taking up valuable time. And as well as being able to expose those important license terms here, you can also expose them in Primo, so that your end user can see what the terms are that govern the use of the particular resource that they are searching. Another feature within the license management side of things, within the ERM, that I think is useful, is this next tab along, the inventory tab. So that I can actually see instantly exactly which of the packages that we subscribe to, the collections, are covered by this particular license. So again, I'm not having to go back to spreadsheets or paper information. Everything is here in a simple list for me. And in fact, with a couple of clicks from this point, I can see the individual titles that are included in this particular collection or package. Okay, well, I hope that was interesting. What we'll have a look at now is the analytics and reporting area of Alma. Now, for this part of the demo, I'm actually going to log out as Annie. Let's just bob back to her dashboard so we can see we're still logged in as Annie. We can see her dashboard and her task list. But although Annie actually does, as part of her role, I'll just show you here, have the ability to create reports, she's simply too busy. You know, she needs to be spending her time focusing on acquisitions. So another member of staff, a slightly more, you know, one of the systems managers has said, well, you know what, I can help you with that. So I'm going to log out from Annie's account and log in as somebody who has more system management level positions. I'm logging in as me, actually. And what you'll see when I log in, actually, is my dashboard looks different. So I've said I've got sort of system manager type privileges, a role, and what you can see here is that my task list is a lot longer, and I've actually got this message at the top of the screen, and we'll take a minute to look at this. Every user of Alma will have been able to see this warning message, and it's basically flagging up that there's going to be some downtime this coming weekend. You can see actually here that it's between, it will happen between midnight and 6 a.m., although it won't take 6 hours, and that's Central European time. Because we're installing actually the October release of Alma across the whole of the Alma production environment. So when the staff come in Monday morning, they're going to see the October release, not the September release. But in fact, all the Alma customers have had access to the October release in their sandbox environment for at least a week, and you can see that they have access to the release notes. And what Annie has done is she said, okay, well, I've read that message, I've remembered it, and I can dismiss it, and it won't appear again. Me, as a system manager, I've decided to leave the message there just to remind me, just to check that everybody has paid attention and knows that there's this overnight downtime this weekend. And you'll see that the widgets, the reports I have on my screen, cover actually different areas to the ones that Annie had. And my task list is somewhat longer because I'm keeping an eye on some other areas within the system. Anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the analytics side of things. And again, this is going to be quite a short look, not a detailed look at analytics, because I just want to look at the areas that I can use to support my colleagues, you know, mean that they don't have to spend lots and lots of time working on analytics. It's not going to be a detailed look at analytics. We did also deliver a webinar about analytics as part of this series that looked at the functionality really in depth. And again, it was recorded, so if you missed that, let us know, and we can send you a link to that recording as well. So let's go to the analytics area. I'm going to choose Design Analytics. So what in analytics, what in the report writing functionality do we do that saves you time? Well, the first thing we do is we supply something in the region of more than 50 out-of-the-box reports, already written, so you don't have to. So what I've done here is I have clicked on Catalog, and the area I want to look at actually is Alma. So anything in this folder called Alma, those are actually the reports that Ex Libris has supplied. In fact, you can also get access to them in this area called Community, but I want to show you something else about Community at the moment. So if I let's open the acquisitions folder. Let's have a look at the reports folder. And so all of these are reports that have been written by Ex Libris and supplied with the system. So you might find that the report you're looking for is already there. You don't have to write it. It's already been written. On the other hand, you might be looking at a report and think, well, that's almost what I want, but not quite. So, for example, we've got a report here, expenditure per fund ledger code, the top 10. So if we have a look at this particular report, And perhaps what I've been asked to do is provide a list, well, quite simply, of the top 20. So this report, designed to display as a graph, shows you which ledger is spending the most money, shall we say. It's got 10, but I've been asked to find the top 20. So what I can do with this report that already exists is I can simply have a look at how it was created, the criteria, and I can see here that there was a filter added to filter the top 10. So I could just use the criteria that the report that's already been created, make one simple change, make it 20, not 10. That saved me stacks of time, and I've got the report I looked for. So I think that's really very, very useful, using the reports that we have supplied with the system. But this is really my favourite bit. So I'm now going to show you this community area. I'll open the catalogue again so that we've got what I want to show you is at the top. It's just a bit clearer. So what we have here is you've got Alma. That's where we pop our reports. Alma University is where you'd keep your own reports. But if we look at the community area, and we're going to look at reports, shared reports, and let's just open this folder here so we've got it on screen. We've got all the reports again split into subject area folders, but look what happens. Look what's in this folder. So I'm going to have a look at the acquisitions vendor analysis folder, and in fact here where it says Ex Libris at the beginning, again, these are those out-of-the-box reports that we've written for you. But look what we've got at the bottom. The community area, every single one of the folders in that community area contains reports written by other Alma customers and shared with the community of Alma customers. And in the same way, we were able to edit and reuse the out-of-the-box reports, the Ex Libris supplies reports. We can make use of other people's expertise. And again, we're saving time. So, for example, what have we got here? Kingston University, this would be, have got a book supplier, average delivery days from order to receipt. Now, I suspect if I just tried to run this report, it probably won't work against my database, because it might be that we're using different suppliers, using different fields for information. But what I could do by editing is, again, have a look at how Kingston put it together. So you can see it's very precise. It's using terminology from Kingston University. So it's not going to automatically run against my database. But if I look at how they put this report together, what I could do is copy their criteria, just make some minor changes, so I can see, that's what they did, right. And vendor name, it was a vendor name, so they use a vendor called Arts Bibliographic. We don't. But if I just copied this and changed that vendor to one of the vendors I use, I've got the report, and I haven't had to spend the time actually thinking about how I would put it together. Okay, now another real time saver is when somebody has been either creating reports from scratch, or as I've been showing you here, has been making use of reports either written by Ex Libris or by other Alma users. To save time, to support colleagues within my library, what I can do is actually push this data out to them. Not saying, well, there's dozens of reports in analytics. Why don't you go in and have a look? I can actually provide what I think are the appropriate reports for somebody, and all they've got to do is say, yeah, send me that one. And I'll show you how we do this. So, I'm going to just open the catalogue again, because I want the display to be up at the top here. So, Alma University, this would say, whichever university, the name of your organisation. For our demo purposes, we just call this pretend university Alma University. And so within Alma University and in the reports area, I might have a folder where I bob the reports that I've been working on. So actually, I keep one here. It's called, my little demo folder. I use it obviously for demos. So in there's a particular report. It's about monitoring what titles have been recalled. And so maybe I've been discussing with Annie, our acquisitions person, that she wants to know about the most popular titles that are being recalled, so she can recommend them for buying extra copies or something like that. So rather than saying, oh, well, come into analytics, drill down to my folder, you'll find a report you think you'll like, I can do something much more proactive. So I'll go back to the Alma menu. And again, under the heading of analytics, I'm going to go to the configuration menu. And they're somewhat mysteriously named analytics object list, but it'll make sense when we go into this screen. So in this list are basically all different types of reports that people have created or maybe reused from reports that already existed. And they have decided what type of report it's going to be. Is it a traditional report, or is it, in fact, as we saw early, something like a widget that people can put on their desktop? Now, the list is quite long, so I want to filter it. And what I know is that I decided that my recalled items report would be a scheduled report. So this is going to filter the list down. All right, and so this is the report that I had created. So I added it to the analytics object area. I'll show you how I did that. Add new analytics object. And this is the area that allows me to actually say, okay, this is what the report's called, so I can give it an additional title, maybe something that means a little bit more. I can then go and actually find the particular report from the folder that I kept it in. And depending on the report I choose, this is the list that would say which reports are in my folder. I can then choose what type of report it's going to be. Now, I chose a scheduled report, and Alma recognizes that if I'm saying, well, this is a scheduled report, I have to be given options for how often the report should be. I chose that I thought this particular report should be a weekly report, and I chose that the format would be PDF. I was also then able to say who should this particular report be made available to, and we wanted to make it available to people in Annie's team of acquisitions so that they could work on whether there was a bit of a trend in the recalled items and that they should recommend some additional copies be purchased. Okay, so let's come out of this area. In fact, we'll cancel this because I'd already made this report available. So there it is. I've said that this recalled items for reviews by acquisitions is a weekly scheduled report. That's all I have to do. So what we'll do at this point is I will log out and we'll log back in as Annie and show what she does to take advantage of this work that I've done. So let's sign out, sign back in as Annie. We don't recommend the sharing of passwords and usernames, by the way. This is, of course, a demo scenario. So Annie's logged in. There's her dashboard. And she's thinking, now, I wonder if Liz managed to get that report sorted out for me. So she, again, comes over to the analytics area, and she goes to subscribe to analytics. Now, what she sees in this list are all the items that all the reports that have been made available to people within her, that have her roles, her permissions in the library. So there's the one that I created, the recalled items for review for acquisitions, and all she has to do is place a tick by it. And then she can forget about this, get on with her work. But what's going to happen is that weekly, this report runs. She doesn't have to come looking for it. The PDF that I selected the format would be will be automatically delivered to her email inbox. So it's such a time saver. She's not going looking for information. She's not chasing me whether that report's run. It's all going to happen automatically, and it pops into her inbox. So I think that's a really useful feature, a real time saver. Okay, I think really, looking at the time as well, that's all I wanted to show you to sort of demonstrate, back up my proposition from the beginning that, Alma really does help you to be a librarian again. Let's just go back into our PowerPoint. So, yeah, I hope that I have been able to demonstrate how well Alma does create efficiencies. So this idea that, being a librarian, again, is that it is freeing up your time from those mundane, manual, routine tasks to allow you to focus on what you really want to be doing. So, I think I said at the beginning, didn't I? Maybe that's working with end users. Maybe that's getting the chance to do some innovative stuff with some of the other things that Alma provides for you instead of the manual routine. So I hope I've been able to demonstrate, and started some thinking going on about maybe areas that you still have to do manually or that's really, a waste of your time. But for those of you that have attended my webinars before, you'll know that I always like to leave the last word to Dilbert, or in this case, to Dogbert. And we'll just take a little look at what he thinks a real librarian is up to. Okay. Little bit of an advert. The final webinar in our series, the very mysteriously titled Making Your LMS Unique, or I suppose it should really say Making My LMS Unique. What I want to talk to you about next time, on the 20th of October, as you can see, is what really excites me about Alma. What I think really sets Alma ahead of the pack, ahead of the rest. So if you haven't booked for that yet, please do. Otherwise, thank you very much for listening. You've got my contact details there if there's anything you wanted to ask me. I'm also on Twitter as well. But otherwise, I'll hand back to my lovely colleague, and we'll see if there were any questions that came in.